Hey everyone, it's Aisha here, and this video is brought to you by Mavio. The topic that today we're going to cover is your GIS and survey integration. Today we are adding a very powerful dimension to health data science. Not just what and who, but where. And trust me, once you start asking where, everything changes. So we're gonna ask a third question, where, and that is gonna change pretty much. Why location changes the story? Imagine there are like two patients and they're diagnosed with cholera. Both are male, 35, with similar diets. Standard analysis treats them as identical as they could. But geography explains the cause. One lives near a contaminated pump, the other is kilometers away. So John Snow's map identified the outbreak source before germ theory even existed. He didn't have better data, he had located the data. So he just got to know that, oh, this person lives near this contaminated pump. He obviously is going to have cholera. So your location matters a lot. Your GIS in plain language, a stack of intelligence. Think of GIS as your Google Maps, but with different layers. Every piece of information with a location, and that can be mapped, analyzed, and compared. You have three things: your location, your attributes, and your relationships. What is your location? The coordinates, your addresses, or the boundaries. Your attributes are like your disease rates, your income, or your facility types. And what are the relationships? Your proximity, clustering, and your barriers. So, this is what your GIS in plain language. You have different health surveys. A quick recap: your core examples, your capture data, and the blind spot. So standard tools like PDHS, WHO steps, and MIC captures vital population samples. That is how you're gonna take the samples. And then your capture data, demographics, behaviors, symptoms, and healthcare access indicators. What is the blind spot that you have? Surveys tell you what happens to the people, but often ignore the environment they inhabit. They just ignore. For example, you're conducting a survey and you're asking, are you diabetic? Or, for example, you're saying that, or do you have malaria or something? But you're not asking them where do they live. If they're gonna do the yes, they're gonna pick the yes in the column or no in the column. You don't know their environment. Don't know where they're living. So GIS integration fills the gap between the human attributes and your environmental context. The gap between who and where. Your features. First is your data depth. The other is your environmental context, and the last is your core insight. If I talk about the data depth, the surveys alone, rich individual data, GIS alone, rich spatial data, and integrated together, they're comprehensive 360-degree view of your data. That's how you're going to get your data using the surveys and the GIS. Your environmental context, non-existent and weaks in the survey. In GIS, strong environmental focus. And if you integrate one of these, contextual human analysis is what you're going to get. Core insights, they identify in the surveys what. In GIS alone, they show where exactly. And if integrated together, they're going to explain why. So a survey tells you about the plant, GIS tells you about the soil, the sunlight, and the drainage. So it's telling you about the location, right? That how the location is affecting them. Your georeferencing survey data. You have three kind of a things here. You have your GPS coordinates, admin boundaries, and your address geocoding. What is your GPS coordinates? Your gold standard recorded at the household level via tools like your ODK or your Kobo toolbox and all that. What are your admin boundaries? They're respondents that are tagged to the district, tehsils or union councils. So common but less precise. What are you addressing geocoding? Converting your physical addresses into a lat long using Google Maps or OpenStreetMaps. So your precision versus your privacy. High spatial resolution increases your analytical power but carries significant ethical risk for your patient confidentially. You have three ways GIS and surveys combine. First is your mapping results, your spatial linkages, and your spatial analysis. What is your mapping results? Visualizing survey findings like your malnutrition as a chloropleth and map to return tables into stories. You're going to turn those tables into the stories. You're going to know where those kind of people were living in and how it affected them. You have special linkage. You are going to match your respondent locations to your external data like facility distance, your rainfall, or your population levels, everything like that. You're going to link it all on. And then you have special analysis, answering questions on clustering, hotspots, and distance based relationships to identify your stunting drivers. Then we have a case study, DHS and GIHS. Your demographic and health surveys program is a global benchmark for health GIS integration. Privacy first. Your cluster coordinates are displaced like 2K kilometers urban, 5 kilometer rural. Linking assets linked to satellites. They derived NDVI road networks and your nighttime lights. Key insights: they have stunting significantly increases for children living far than your 5 kilometers from a paved road. So place matters independently of who you are. This is the core insight delivered by integration, and that is how the DHS is working. The public and private, all these areas. So you're supposed to look out for them, and then that's how you're gonna know things. You have your practical workflow survey to your map. First you design, then you collect, then you clean, you link, and then you analyze. First of all, you plan. You do the georeferencing and select collection tools early. Then you collect. Your field teams capture responses plus GPS coordinates are gonna do that for you. You're gonna clean that. You check for coordinate errors and export as shape files. You link it. You perform special joins with external layers in your QGIS or ARCGIS. And then you analyze it. You execute hotspot buffer or you perform your regression analysis. You analyze your data. So, for example, you are doing a survey or you're collecting data of patients with cholera, just like that. First of all, you plan it. You do the georeferencing. You select what kind of collection tools you're going to use, and then your field team goes in the field. They collect the data via the surveys or via any online survey, a physical survey, anything like that. Then you clean it. You check for the coordinate errors, and you export and shape the file, and then you link it. You link with the external layers. You link, oh, those kind of people were living near the contaminated water or something like that or not. So these are kind of the links here that you're going to perform, and then using your regression analysis, your correlation matrices, or any kind of statistical test, and then you analyze your data. Okay. And then you have key analytical techniques. You have hotspot analysis, your buffer analysis, your spatial interpolation, and then your spatial regression. How does your hotspot analysis works? Like you identify special clustering using your JIS or DGI statistics, and that is essential for finding concentrations of your disease or low coverage. Then you have buffer analysis. You evaluate access by creating zones like 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer, or anything around health facilities to see who falls inside out. Then you see your spatial interpolation using kriging or IDW to estimate your use for unsampled area, which based upon your point data, creating continuous risk maps. Then you have spatial regression. Models like your GWR account for spatial autocorrelation. That is going to reveal how relationship changes across geographic space. You're going to see the relationship between two variables, three, or any variables at a time. That is how your regression works like. Then you have your challenges and limitation. Obviously, if you're doing something, you're going to face challenges. Your MAUP, that results change based on how you draw the boundaries, your district versus union council, so you should be really careful about it. Ecological fallacy, your area level trends do not always reflect individual level relationships. So you gotta see it as well. If area level trend is one way, your individual level relationships could be another way. Your privacy ethics, your precise GPS must be protected via de-identification or displacement. You guys know by now that what de-identification is, I hope so. Then you have spatial autocorrelation. Nearby areas are like similar, violating independence assumptions and standard stats. Then your data integrity. You coordinate systems mismatches that can corrupt your analysis. So you need to take care of all of these, and these are your challenges and limitations that you need to come over for that. Your health application summaries. We have different applications. For example, malaria risk. Prevalence survey is a survey input. Your GIS layers linked with the climate, the water bodies, and the land use. You have maternal GIS. You're going to look at the DHS birth data. You are, with your GIS layers linked, you're going to see health facilities, your road networks as well. For nutrition, you are going to see MIC and anthropometry, and then for the GIS layers, your drought indices, your market access, and all that. For your vaccine logistics, EPI covered surveys, what you're gonna need, your temperature zones and density, etc. Your population as well. The survey provides the human outcome, the GS provides the environmental context. So, for example, you're running a survey over anything. Your survey is just providing the human data, and what your GIS is doing, your GIS is providing you the environmental context as well. That if this one certain patient has malaria, what kind of environment they are living in, why do they have malaria, do they have like marshy areas, do they have fungal water or anything like that. So that is what they're explaining, that is what your GIS is doing. Yeah, I guess that is it for now. And the moment you put your survey data on a map, you start asking why here, and that is where actionable answers live. So this is how your GIS is working on, and this is how it is helping the data and helping you answer the third question, where. I hope this lecture is clear to you all, guys, and you'll apply it in your real life as well. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.